Swayam Prabha. Digital India. Educated India.
Hello learners, welcome to the Unit 3 of our course of Microeconomics and its applications. Today is the first lecture of this Unit 3 and this Unit 3 is going to talk about production function as well as production analysis. I am Dr. Aparna Samudra, course coordinator as well as the presenter of this lecture. Learners, till now in Unit 1 and in Unit 2, we have been talking about the demand as well as the consumer behavior. Our focus of discussion till now has been on the consumer. That is, we saw that with the given price of the goods, how much the consumer is going to buy, how does the consumer measures his utility, how do we determine a budget line, how does a consumer achieve a equilibrium. But now our focus is going to shift from the consumer to the producer. So this particular unit that we are discussing right now will be talking about that what do we mean by a production function. Thereafter, we will be talking about what do we mean by a short run and long run production function, and thereafter we'll understand what is the law of variable proportion. So it is going to be a very interesting journey for all of us. So let us start today's lecture. As I told you, the first thing that we will be talking about today is what do we mean by a production function? What is production first of all? Production in very simple words means that we are transforming given inputs into outputs. So a raw material is available with an entrepreneur, with a producer. He is going to transform this raw material with the help of machines, with the help of labor into a final good. That is what we call as a production. When we talk about production function, we are saying that this production function defines the relationship between inputs and the maximum amount that can be produced within a given period of time with a given level of technology. So, as we have just understood that production basically means transforming inputs into outputs. So, when we try to establish a relationship between the inputs so that what maximum output we can produce or a producer can get within a given period of time and with a given technology, that is called as a production function. I hope you all must be aware by the term function. Function basically is when we are talking about some independent variables which are having an impact on something which is dependent on them. So a mathematical meaning of function means that you have certain independent variables, certain things which are independent, but these independent things or these independent variables are having an impact on something on which is dependent on these independent variables. For example, in this, when we are talking about production function, it is the level of output. It is the amount which can be produced which is dependent. What is it dependent on? It is dependent on how much inputs we are using. So this particular, you can see this representation where we are saying that Q is representing the level of output or the total production. This production or this level of output is dependent on a number of inputs which we are representing by x1, x2 till xk. So the number of inputs that we are using are determining the output that we are getting. Therefore, this small f is saying that Q is a function of these inputs. That is, how much is the level of output going to be produced is being dependent on the number of inputs that are being used in the purpose of production. And we are representing these inputs by, let us say, x1, x2 until xk, depending on how much inputs are being used for the production of q. So a relationship between output and inputs is defined by way of a production function. Going further with this production function, there are a few assumptions that we make whenever we are talking about a production function, as you've just seen in the definition also. The most important out of that is that the level of technology is given, that is during whenever we are estimating this production function, or whenever we are talking about the behavior of inputs and outputs, we are saying that the technology is not going to change. The state of technology is given to you. Similarly, whatever inputs or input combinations are included. For example, if you are using only one input or you are using more than one input, then whatever input or input combinations are included in a particular function, the output that we are going to get from the utilization is at the maximum level. So the inputs are producing the maximum possible output. So these are the two key assumptions which we make. And just we have seen in the previous slide that production function is represented by q is a function of, let us say, from x1, x2 till xk amount of inputs that you are using. But for simplicity, for understanding the behavior between input and output, we consider a production function to be a function of only two inputs. Therefore, if you can see this production function, we have said q is a function of x, y, where q is the level of output, x, let us say, assumed to be labor, and y is capital. In many places, in many books, many authors, for capital, they use capital K as well. Okay, but they mean same. Similarly, X, for labor, many times we use capital L also. But what we are trying to put across to you learners right now is that for simplicity, maybe in reality, in practical life, there will be many inputs and input combinations which are going to be used when we are producing. But in order to understand the behavior of output with respect to input, for simplicity, we are just taking two types of inputs, that is labor and capital, which are going to determine the level of output. Now, we are going to divide the production functions based on the basis of time period. And on the basis of time period, there are two types of production function we say. One is called as short-run production function and other is called as long-run production function. So there are two types of production functions we are going to talk about, short-run and long-run. Now let us see what we mean by short-run production function first. We say short-run production function shows the maximum quantity of output that can be produced by a set of inputs. Okay, what does it show? It shows the maximum quantity of output that can be produced by a set of inputs. But we are assuming something. What are we assuming? We are assuming that the amount of at least one of the input used remains unchanged. That is, if we are using two inputs, labor and capital, and we are talking about a short-run production function, we say a short-run production function is a one in which we are keeping one of the factor of production unchanged. That is, there is not going to be any change in one factor of production and other factor of production is going to change. And because of that change, whatever happens to the level of output, that we will be discussing in your short-run production function. So what does short run production function shows? I am repeating again. It shows the maximum quantity of output that can be produced by a set of inputs, assuming that at least one of these inputs used remains the same. So if a producer is using labor and capital, and if he keeps capital unchanged, there is no change in the amount of capital, but he is only changing the number of labor he is employing, then this situation will be called as short run. And how does quantity output changes? With the change in only labor is represented in short run production function. The other one we have just said is long run production function. Now in this particular production function, we are seeing the maximum quantity of output that can be produced by a set of inputs, assuming that the firm is free to vary the amount of all the inputs being used. Saying, what does it say? It says that we are understanding that how much quantity of output can be produced by given inputs, and in which situation? In a situation where the firm is changing all the available inputs it is having or it is using. So if the firm is using two factors of production, let us say labor and capital, and if he is allowed to change, or if the firm is free to change the number of units of labor as well as the number of units of capital, and how much output we can get by this change of both the inputs, that production function is called as long run production function. Now let us discuss in detail short run production function. As we have just said, in short run, the firm is keeping at least one input constant and other input it is changing. This means that the inputs are divided in two. One, those inputs which are fixed. Fixed means those inputs whose amount we are not changing. And other inputs whose quantity we are changing are called as variable inputs. So in short run, inputs will be of two types, fixed and variable. What are fixed? Which quantity remains constant. What are variable? Those factor inputs whose quantity can be changed by the producer. For example, we have just said the firm may be able to vary the amount of labor, but it may not be able to change the amount of capital. So in this situation, learner, which is the fixed input? The fixed input will be capital. Why? Because it is not changing. And what is the variable input? It is the labor. Right? Therefore, in short run, we can talk about factor productivity. That is, we can talk about that this variable factor, how much is it bringing a change in the output for the firm. Therefore, in short run, we talk about the law of variable proportion, which is also called as the law of diminishing returns. Okay, now let us see this table, which will further make you, more, it will be clear, it will clarify to you what we mean by short run. Let us say this is a firm which is using both labor and capital. Mechanics is the amount of labor, whereas your capital is the a fixed factor of production. Now it has various combinations of X and Y, labor and capital it can use there, but you see this red column of capital is kept constant, and then we are seeing if you are using only 10 units of capital but number of mechanics is changing, what is leading to your change in output. Moving further, now let us understand long run production function. As I just told you, long run production function means that all inputs become variable, that the firm has a choice The producer has a choice that he changes all the inputs that it is using. So in long run, the firm can adjust all the inputs to the changed conditions. This means if Q or the output is a function of labor and capital, then both labor and capital are changing and they are having an impact on the total output. Therefore, when we study the behavior of output and inputs in long run, we talk about returns to scale. In short run, we talked about law of variable proportion. In long run, we are talking about returns to scale. Similar uh, table I have put here for you to understand. Again, labor and capital. Mechanics is the labor that you are using. Capital is, of course, the, let us say, machinery that you are using. Various combinations of labor and capital are given to you, which are leading to various levels of output. We are not, unlike the short run where we had kept the amount of capital constant at 10, where we saw the table, the column of 10, it was highlighted red, means we are only changing mechanics, we are not changing capital. In long run, both capital and labor are changing, which are bringing a change in the total level of output. Okay, now let us move further with your short run production function. Since we have talked about that in short run, one variable is fixed and other variable is constant, we will try to understand that what are the various types of products which we talk about in short run. The first one that we say is called as total product. What is total product? It means the total quantity or the total output of a good which is being produced by in a given period of time. Let us say when we are saying in our function which we have said, Q is a function of labor and capital. Q is the total output produced, which is also called as the total product. Marginal product. If you remember, learners, we have discussed the concept of marginal and average when we did your first unit. What is marginal? Marginal product is the extra output which is associated when you are using or when you are changing one more unit of the variable resource. Other factors remaining the same. If I am producing by using labor and capital, I am keeping capital constant because it is short run. I am only changing labor. So the change in the output which has been brought by employing one extra unit of labor or the variable factor, that change in output is called as marginal product. So what is marginal product? We say marginal product is the change in the total product. Why? Because there is a change in the labor input. Okay, if I was earlier employing 5 mechanics and I was producing, let us say, keeping capital constant, I was producing some level of output, let us say X. Now instead of 5, I have one more person I employ. So number of mechanics with me is, let us say, 6, and I get new output as Y. So the Y minus X, that is new output minus the original output at which 5 mechanics were employed, that change in output is called as marginal product. So if X is your variable factor of production, then the change in Q, because your X has changed, measures your marginal product. The third type of product we talk about is the average product, which talks about labor productivity if labor is the variable factor of production. How do we calculate average product? We say it is the output of per unit resource, that is total product, divided by the total number of units of labor that we are employing. Okay, that if my total product is 10 and I'm employing 5 number of laborers, then 10 divided by 5 will give me 2. So that will be the average product of labor. That is what is the labor productivity. On an average, what is each labor producing? How many units of production are being done by each labor? So if X is your variable factor of production, then Q divided by X means Q is the total product divided by the number of X that we have employed to produce that Q will give us the average product. So three types of products we have discussed in short run: total product, average product, and marginal product. Now, as I told you, in short run, what do we see is, we see that one factor of production is fixed and other factor of production is constant. And if I am saying that my production function is represented by Q is a function of labor and capital, this means that if there will be a change in these inputs, there is going to be some change in output, right? But in short run, we are keeping capital to be constant. Labor we are changing. So there will be some change in the output. How does the output behave? How does the total product change when I am only changing one input, that is labor, keeping the capital fixed? That is explained by the law of diminishing returns, which is also called as the law of variable proportion. What does this law say? The law of diminishing returns says that when, please be careful when I'm reading this, then we will explain it. The law of diminishing returns states that when more and more units of a variable input are applied to a given fixed quantity of inputs, what does it say? It says that when we keep on employing more and more units of variable input to the same amount of the fixed input, that is, if we are keeping capital the same, but I am increasing the number of labor that I have, then what will happen? Then the total output, that is your total product, may initially increase at an increasing rate. That will, we'll see that your total product is increasing at an increasing rate. That is, every new person who's coming in is adding more and more to your total product. And then this total product will increase, but will increase at a slower rate or a constant rate. And then eventually, if you still keep on employing more and more labor to the same amount of capital, what will happen is that our total product will diminishing, it will fall. Okay, so the law of diminishing returns is talking about the behavior of the total product, keeping your labor variable and capital constant. So as and as your total output increases at an increasing rate, then it increases at a diminishing rate, and it's a constant rate, and then it declines. Now, this law of diminishing returns is based on the following assumptions. First, that the state of technology is given. There is no change in technology. Labor is homogeneous. That is, every person has a similar type of a skill and ability. And then input prices are also given to you. Price of labor and price of capital is given to you. Now, as we have just seen in the definition, now let us see the three stages of production in a tabular form. What we have done is, we have taken the number of workers. If you see the first column, the number of workers is changing. Total product, that is the total amount of production being done by each labor. Then we have marginal product, average product. Okay, marginal product is the change in the total product when you employ one more labor. Average product is total product divided by the number of workers. So you are getting this particular table. We are saying the number of workers is increasing because it is variable. With an increase in number of workers, you see your total product is increasing till you are employing 10 number of laborers. Then what is happening? When you go to the 11th person, your total product is started falling. Right? Similarly, you see the marginal product. Marginal product, every new person adding is, coming is adding more and more. First person, 24 was the marginal product. You employ the second worker, how much output he has added to? 48. You employ the third person, how much output he has added? 66. You employ the fourth person, how much he has added? 8 for 78. So every new person who is coming in is adding more to your total product. Means your total product is increasing at an increasing rate. But then what happens at the seventh when you employ the seventh worker? You see the marginal product has started coming down. From 84 it has come to 78. Keeps on declining now. And what is happening when you employ the 11th worker? You see that the marginal product is negative. Negative means this person, if you employ, he is not going to add anything to your total product. Rather, your total product will fall because of this. Similarly, if you see the behavior of the average product is increasing till you employ the sixth number of worker. After that, your average product becomes constant at 7 and 8, and then it also starts declining. So we divide your law variable portion in three stages of production. The first stage is called as stage of increasing returns. Second is called as stage of diminishing returns. And third is called as the stage of negative returns. What do you mean by increasing returns? Increasing returns means that in this particular stage, which is ending with the sixth number of worker, your total product is increasing at an increasing rate. That is, your marginal product is continuously increasing. Okay, your marginal product is continuously increasing. What is happening after you employ the seventh worker or in the diminishing returns? We see that even though the total product is rising, but this rise in total product is diminishing. It is rising at a decreasing rate. It is rising slower. Why? Because you concentrate on the marginal product of labor. What is happening to MPL? From 7th number of worker to 10th number of worker, your marginal product is falling. Means every new worker that you are adding to the same fixed input is of course adding something, but adding less than the previous one. 7th worker, how much did he add to the total product? 78 tons. 8th worker, how much did he add? 66, means lesser than the 7th. Have a look at the 9th number worker. How much is he added? 48, but lesser than the 8th. So this stage is called as stage of diminishing returns. What is happening to the average product? Average product has also started declining. The third stage is called as stage of negative returns. Why is it negative returns? Because this labor productivity, if you see this MPL, it is negative. Means your total product has started falling. So these are the three stages of the law of variable proportion. Let us see this graphically now. As I told you, the first stage, as we said, is the stage of increasing returns in which your total product is rising. MP is also rising. This particular graph is marginal product. MP is also rising. It becomes maximum and it starts declining only in the stage 1. Average product rises, becomes maximum, and when the average product becomes maximum, that is the end of stage 1. Then you go to stage 2. In stage 2, your AP is declining and MP is also declining, but both of the MP is still positive. Therefore, your total product is rising, but it is increasing at a diminishing rate, right, as we saw in the table. But what is happening at this point where we have put this dotted line? We say stage 2 ends, means your MP becomes 0. That is, this person is not adding anything. The new person who has come in or the new labor you have employed is not adding anything to your total output. So your marginal product is 0. And also remember, learners, that when the marginal product is 0, total product is highest at that point, because after this your marginal product will become negative. Do you see this MP going below the x-axis? Means MP is negative, means total product has started declining. So these are the three stages of production in the law of variable proportion. Another important thing we should understand here is the behavior of AP and MP. We have already seen in stage 1 and in stage 2, we see some change in the total product, average product and marginal product. If you see the graph, what we see is that when average product, just concentrate on this graph that I have made, when your average marginal product, if marginal product is more than average product, that is every new person who is coming in is adding more, then your AP is rising because MP is pulling up your average product. When if MP is less than AP, then AP is falling, right? If you see this, your MP is falling. Okay, it is below AP, so it shows your AP is falling. AP is equal to MP, then AP is maximum. When average product is maximum, that is the point when marginal product becomes equal to the average product. And when MP is 0, as I told you earlier, total product is the highest. So this point of TP is highest when your marginal product is 0. So when 7 number of people are employed, marginal product is 0 in this case and total product is highest. Again, I'm showing you small recap of the 3 stages of production. All the 3 types of products I've listed here in all the 3 stages. So total product in stage 1 increases at an increasing rate. What happens to MP? MP increases, reaches maximum and then declines. Stage 1 only, right? And when till your AP is equal to MP. Average product also increases and reaches its maximum. This means stage 1 will end when AP is maximum. And when AP is maximum, AP is equal to MP. AP is average product, MP is marginal product. Second stage is the stage of diminishing returns. Why is it diminishing returns? Because even though the total product is rising, but its rise has become slower. The rate of its rise has become slower. So in stage 2, total product increases at a diminishing rate till it reaches the highest point, till it reaches the maximum. What is happening to the marginal product in stage 2? Marginal product is diminishing, it is falling, and it also becomes equal to 0. What is happening to average product? Average product is also falling in stage 2. Stage 3, stage of negative returns. Total product is falling, marginal product is negative, and average product continues to decline. So these are the 3 stages. Now the question comes is, where should the producer operate? In which stage should the producer operate? That is, the question comes to him is that how much labor should I employ then? Should I stop in stage 1, stage 2 or stage 3? What do you think should be the stage of operation? Should you operate in stage 3? No. Why? Because in stage 3, the marginal product is negative and total product is falling. Will, as a producer, you like to employ someone if by his employment your total product declines? No. So stage of operation cannot be the declining stage. That is the third stage. What happens in stage 1? Stage 1 TP is rising. MP rises, starts falling, and AP becomes maximum. Should the producer operate in stage 1 then? No. Why? Because still in stage 1, total product is increasing. It has still not become maximum. Marginal product is still positive. This means the stage of operation will be the stage 2. Why? Because it is in this stage that his total product will become maximum. Right? So in stage 1, as it said, it is profitable for the firm to keep on increasing the use of labor because its total product is increasing. Stage 3, nobody should operate because marginal product is negative. So it is inadvisable to use additional labor. Therefore, stage 2 is the stage of operation. This law of variable proportion we see a lot when we talk about Indian agriculture. Now let us do a small self-assessment in terms of this fill in the blanks. The first is the law of diminishing returns is also known as the law of what? It is also known as the law of variable proportion. Second, a rational producer will not operate where his TP, AP, MP is positive and rising. Okay, that is, he will not operate in the first stage. He will be going in the second stage. Let us summarize today's lecture. We have talked about what do we mean by production function, which is basically a relationship between input and output. Two types of production function we said, short run and long run. In short run, you have fixed factors and variable factors, whereas in long run, all factors are variable. Then we said in short run, it is the law of variable proportion which operates, which says that if you keep on adding more and more variable factor to the same fixed factor, the marginal product of the variable factor will increase in the beginning, but then it will fall. So I hope you have enjoyed this lecture. The next lecture, we will be talking about the behavior of the production in long run. Till then, happy learning.